All right, back on the Young Turks. This is the portion of the program where we do crazy Republicans. So it'll be rather long. There are a great number of stories about them, starting with the craziest of them all, Glenn Beck. Now, yesterday we showed you a video on the show about this prayer girl who was praying that atheists have their eyes open, and then she said her prayers were answered when the tsunami happened in Japan. It was God punishing them, and she was overjoyed about it. And it was nuts. And it turns out, she says now that she was just doing troll videos, and that it was a way of like mocking people who think like that, right? And she got a lot of heat for that, etc. We covered it. But it was so over the top that's why she calls them troll videos. Like, you know, it's mocking people who are that crazy, right? And that was just one random girl on the internet, and it caused that kind of uproar. Well, there's someone who is saying it for real. His name, unsurprisingly, is Glenn Beck. And he said it on his radio program. I think it's beyond outrageous. Let's give you the whole thing in context and then come back and talk about it.
We can't see the connections here. Now, look, I'm not saying God is, causing earthquakes. Well, no, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that either.
God,
God, what God does is God's business. I have no idea. But I'll tell you this, whether you call it Gaia or whether you call it Jesus, there's a message being sent. And that is, hey, you know that stuff we're doing? Not really working out real well. Maybe we should stop doing some of it. I'm just saying. And yesterday I got home and I was thinking about all the messages that I could bring you and all the things that I could tell you. And I've got stuff on Hezbollah. I have stuff on radical Islam in America that'll make your eyes fall out. Or I could just tell you the answer. And the answer is, buckle up, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Make sure you keep your arms and legs inside the car at all times, because things are going to get bumpy. And just a few reminders there at the beginning as this roller coaster takes off. Always a good safety tip. Keep your arms and legs in. Don't do anything stupid. What do you say we follow the big top 10? You can call them Moses' 10 Commandments or yes, 10 Rules of Thumb. What do you say we start doing those things? Because the things we are doing really suck. And they're not getting better.
Now, I'm trying to make sense of that. So is he got a problem with the things that Japan is doing, or that we're doing, or that the whole world is doing? And so I guess he thinks that God, he's saying, I'm not saying that God didn't do it, meaning he thinks, I guess, that God did it, and it was to, punish the Japanese for doing what wrong? What are they doing? Are they running the same government as we are? Are they also Maoist socialists? What is he talking about? Does anybody have any idea what he's saying? What, should the whole be punished because, according to Beck, who's apparently got a connection with God, God is upset? And if he's chosen Beck as his messenger, it's a curious choice. I mean, come on, man. There are times to say things like this, and there are times when you don't. I mean, think about it. If Beck is, not if Beck is right, because that is inconceivable, but if think about it from his point of view, he thinks when God came in and wiped away those people, and you saw the tsunami, you see the houses being wiped away, about at least 10,000 people are dead, it looks like, according to all estimates, when you include the dead, confirmed dead and the missing. There was men, women, and children inside those houses. Did God punish those children for what? Not listening to the 10 Commandments? Moses was, first of all, didn't exist. But if he did exist, he was in Egypt, okay? By the way, Israeli archaeologists went to go find evidence of Moses in Egypt and found none. They found detailed records of everything, but no mention of a guy doing anything remotely similar to Moses. But let's say he existed. Why didn't he talk about Japan? Why didn't he say, hey, the good people of Japan, here are the 10 Commandments that you need to follow? He didn't mention them at all. Neither did Jesus. Did they not know about Japan? But so now, apparently, this God who sent Moses to free his people in Egypt is angry at the Japanese because they're not following the Ten Commandments they never even got word of. Now, eventually they got word of it because, population spreading, et cetera, but it wasn't directed at them. I mean, I'm trying to break down the absurdity of this. Is he saying the Japanese are getting punished because some of them are Shinto? Because they don't follow Jesus, they don't follow the Ten Commandments, or they don't buy gold line? I don't know why are they being punished? Why are these kids being killed in Japan in a tsunami and an earthquake? Look, the guy's a lunatic, okay? He does this God spiel, one, because, he's really mentally unstable. And he probably thinks he's talking about it. He's like, oh, Yahweh, what are you saying? Oh, Japan, buckle up. Yeah, I will tell them, right? And then the second part of it is he makes money off of this fear-mongering. I mean, snake oil salesmen have been doing this forever. Oh, you have angered God, and there's only one way out. And then they pass the hat around. And in this case, Glenn Beck says, there's only one way out. Buy gold and do your seed garden, emergency garden, whatever the hell stupid garden he's got, etc. Oh, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Gold line is the answer. However he makes his money shilling for ridiculous companies, okay? But it's just, there's times to be stupid and offensive, Beck, but this is not one of them. You have to have bounds of reason. He calls himself a rodeo clown. This is not time to be a rodeo clown when nearly 10,000 people have died. Have some decency, man. But, of course, we're asking the wrong guy to have decency.
Cenk. Hey.
Yes.
You're missing the point, man. It's not focused on Japan. It's not going to, they are not following the right thing, or they're dispensable. They're not Americans. We're closed off. People like this have a closed off mentality for our own society. We're warned from this devastation in Japan. Who cares that 10,000 people died? That has nothing to do with it. God is warning us because God cares about the United States of America. That's how it works. I mean, that's the way the mentality goes. There's no consideration that, God just either cares or doesn't care about Japanese. They're just other people. Who cares who they are? He's warning us. We better start doing things a different way. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, look, you're right, of course. He's using it as any excuse to push what he's pushing on Americans. Yeah, he couldn't care less about what happened to those Japanese. And look, it's just everything to fit their own ideology anyway. God is always angry. And, it's always because we're not listening to Glenn Beck. God's never angry because we're not listening to Barack Obama or we're not listening to, Rachel Maddow. God's always angry when we're not listening to Pat Robertson or Jerry Falwell or Glenn Beck. Funny how that works. All right. So, now, on to other crazy Republicans. Hey, look at this. We told you about Michelle Bachmann screwing up and saying Lexington and Concord started the American Revolution, or in New Hampshire. A painful, ridiculous mistake. It was so egregious a mistake that Michelle Bachmann has actually conceded. And she said on Laura Ingram's radio program, I made a mistake. The first time a Republican has admitted a mistake in decades. So, man, that mistake must have been over the top, because normally they'll just cover it up. And they're like, yeah, of course, what are you talking about? The revolution totally started in New Hampshire. Lexington and Concord, yeah, they were later moved. They were originally in New Hampshire, and then now they moved down to Massachusetts. I mean, normally they'd cover it up with whatever, because their followers don't really care about facts, right? But this was so over the top. I mean, she's supposed to be the leader of the Tea Party movement. The Tea Party also started in Massachusetts, well, probably according to her in New Hampshire. But if she's campaigning in Iowa, it'll be Iowa. I remember when you guys threw the tea into the harbor in Iowa. What? She hasn't said that yet. Just wait. But you can't be the so-called leader of the Tea Party movement and not know anything about the history of the Tea Party or the revolution, etc. So that was embarrassing enough for her to actually say that she screwed up. Hey, will you look at that? Has hell frozen over yet? A Republican admitted a mistake. I don't know. So, now, on to other Republican mistakes. In Kansas, they are debating illegal immigration, and they're considering a law that would be very similar to Arizona's. Good news, bad news. I'll give the good news in a second. First, the bad news. Representative Virgil Peck said that he's got a unique way of controlling illegal immigration. We've got his statement on that, actually. Let's go to clip number 5.
Representative Peck on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was also on the committee report, but I had a question on the amendment, some of this information that was handed out. Looks like to me if shooting these immigrating feral hogs works, maybe we have found a problem to our illegal immigration problem.
All right. So, in case you missed it, he's saying we should shoot the immigrants from helicopters like they're feral hogs. Because they'd been discussing that earlier, saying, hey, feral hogs are a problem in the state, and one way to solve it is to get people up on helicopters and shoot them, and he's saying they could do the same thing about illegal immigration. Later, he claimed he was joking. Shooting illegal. I mean, look, I just watched Machete, or Machete, and it's like he's out of the movie. He's like the Robert De Niro's character. Like, he's like a cartoon character. It's supposed to be a schlock movie, Machete, right? With cartoon-like characters. But they're in real life. I mean, that's exactly what De Niro would have suggested in that movie. Yeah, we got to shoot them from helicopters, yeah! And the head of the Republicans Appropriations Chairman, I should say, Mark Rhodes, said that Peck's comments were inappropriate. When Peck was challenged on it, he was largely unapologetic, saying, quote, I was just speaking like a Southeast Kansas person. Are all people in Southeast Kansas in favor of random murder of immigrants from helicopters? I mean, I don't think so. So now remember, Connie O'Brien, another Republican from Kansas, had earlier said that a college student that she saw online was an illegal immigrant, according to her, because she had olive complexion. Just based on her complexion, she decided that she was illegal. Now, could she have had an olive complexion and been a legal immigrant? No, apparently that was not possible. She later wound up apologizing for that. Now, these are all incredibly outrageous. So what's the good news part of this? Well, interestingly enough, the bill that was similar to Arizona's, for the moment being, has been tabled on a 12-8 vote, even though the Republicans control. A number of Republicans switched, including Pat Colton, and he said that the bill should require probable cause. This bill would have just allowed checks based on a reasonable suspicion that somebody was an illegal immigrant, which is not a high enough standard. That basically allows you to do a racial profiling, and that's what, in fact, she said this is an invitation to racial profiling, and that she was not in favor. Enough Republicans voted the other way to say that if we're going to do this kind of bill, you should at least have probable cause before checking to see if someone is an illegal immigrant. Hey, that's interesting. And, it's Kansas, and it's a little surprising that they didn't go as draconian as some of the other states. But that's good news overall, and it's good news that Virgil Peck was on the losing side of that. So, hey, look, I'm looking for hope and good news in all different places. And so my guess is they'll come back and pass that bill, which ultimately I wouldn't be in favor of anyway. But at least a little moderation within the Republican Party at a state level where you might not have expected it. Remember, Kansas also had a Democratic governor who is now within the Obama administration. So I don't think Kansas is as reactionary as some might imagine, given its history and its, the stereotype of Kansas. Certainly a lot of other states in the country are a lot more reactionary lately. Okay, so now we go on to Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin is getting savaged from all sides. And I'm not talking about liberals. I'm talking about the right wing. There's an article in Politico that is devastating. It has been, Politico is, a vat of conventional wisdom and Washington groupthink, etc. And they run these articles when there are a lot of people leaking stuff to them, trying to take her down. Now, look, there's a lot of people who are going to run against her, possibly in the Republican primaries. So they have good motivation to leak stuff to Politico. But if this is coming out and it's painted this way, that means she's in some serious trouble on the Republican side. They quote George Will, Peter Werner, who's a top strategist for the Bush White House. He was. Heather McDonald, the leading voice in the right-leaning Manhattan Institute, as Politico explains. And Matt LaBosh, longtime writer for the Weekly Standard. They all put different daggers in her back. all with different devastating quotes about how she's unqualified, lacks the intellectual capacity to be president, is leading the Republican Party in the wrong direction, in their words, crying about feminism and victimology and but identity politics, whether it's her complaining that she's being attacked because she's a woman or she's being attacked because she's not from the, as she put it, the hoity-toity class. And here comes the worst of the quotes. It's from Labash, the writer for the Weekly Standard. He said, appeal of conservatism is supposed to be people taking responsibility for their own actions. But if you close your eyes and listen to Palin and her irate supporters constantly squawk or belly ache or tweet about how unfair a ride she gets from evil mustache-twirling elites and rhinos saboteurs, she sounds like a professional victimologist, the flip side of any lefty grievance group leader. She's becoming Al Sharpton, Alaska edition. The only difference being she wears naughty librarian glasses instead of a James Brown do. Oh, damn! Man! Calling somebody the Al Sharpton of the right is as heavy an insult as you can possibly give to a Republican. We're not talking about a normal from the sky. We're talking cage match, up from 20 feet. Here comes the elbow from 4 different corners. Boom! Landing on Palin at the same time. Over and out, man. Apparently, the people in power in the Republican Party decided that Sarah Palin is not the girl. Now, this is also in light of Roger Ailes apparently telling her not to do the blood libel video, and she didn't listen, and that pissed off Ailes. And I told you yesterday, that's a bad idea, man. And she's just angered way too many people in that Republican Party. And now that has led to this Politico article. Then the title is Palin Coming Al Sharpton? Question mark. That is, boom, a hatchet in the back. Oh! And she's staggering and she's stumbling and she's in massive trouble. So I'll tell you, here's something to look out for. If she can get beyond all of this and beat all of these guys, then in some ways you got to take your hat off to her and say, listen, in Bush's immortal words, maybe we're misunderestimating her. But it looks like it's too much to recover from. And we don't even know if she's going to run, But either way, all this attention, she does get richer. There's no question about that. And her supporters will rally around her even more after this, is my guess. So she'll at least make more money out of it. But this is going to leave a mark.
Welcome back to TYT. Anna and Cenk with you. All right, so we have another lawsuit story, and I'm really curious to see what Cenk says about this one. So there's a woman in Manhattan, her name is Nicole Impresia, and she is upset at a preschool that she enrolled her daughter in. It's a private preschool that she paid $19,000 for. And her 4-year-old went to this school because it's supposed to be top-notch type of institution that'll get her prepared for an Ivy League education. Well, it turns out that this woman found out that they placed her 4-year-old preschooler in a class with 2-year-olds, and they were teaching her about colors and shapes and boring things like that her 4-year-old already knew about. So she is now suing the school, York Avenue Preschool, for $19,000, the cost of the tuition, because she believes that they have jeopardized her chances of obtaining an Ivy League education.
All right. First of all, this woman is unbearable. She keeps talking about how smart her kid is and how she could just get into Ivy Leagues if this preschool had prepared her 4-year-old well enough. Because the idea is, so you understand, that she has to take a test soon to get into an elementary school. This is how competitive and crazy people have gotten, okay? And that if she gets into the right elite private elementary school in New York, that would lead to the right private elite high school in New York, which would then lead to the Ivy Leagues, etc. And now that she's been terribly set back by coloring at the age of 4 with, 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds, she's never going to recover. Okay, absurd. She's a 4-year-old. For the love of Christ, let her color, okay? Now, having said that, it's a perfectly legitimate lawsuit. Why? Because she says they promised one thing and they didn't deliver it. They gave her something else. She's suing for the $19,000 that she spent. By the way, $19,000 for preschool. Oh my God. But she's suing for just that amount because she's saying they didn't deliver on what they had promised. Now, I don't know that she's right, but if you go to court on that, that's, to me, as legitimate a lawsuit as it gets.
Okay, so I have a couple points on this. First of all, Nicole Impresia reminds me of myself. Like, if I had children, I would be that competitive. I would want my child to get an Ivy League education, and I would stop at nothing to make that happen. Okay, so I sympathize with her a little bit, but you're right, she's a little unbearable. Having said that, do I agree with this lawsuit? I don't know, I'm 50-50 on it. And the reason why I'm 50-50 is because, look, if you're willing to spend $19,000 a year on a preschool education, you should sit in on a couple classes. You should do as much research as possible before spending that money. Like, people who have money, for some reason, spend it and don't really think about it, right? $19,000? Oh my God, I would spend 3 years researching before I spend that money. Okay, so...
Anna, look, she did research on it from what I read in the article. Sitting in on 3 classes, that seems like a lot. 2, I mean, you don't know. They could show you classes where they're doing good work, and then they put her in the, God forbid, the coloring class. Look, so I'm not sure that's fair. Obviously, she cares a great deal about her kid getting the best education, which is a good thing. You and I agree. Mm-hmm. But now, based on what you're telling me, look, I'm obsessed too. I want my kids to have as good an education as possible. But I don't want to put an insane amount of pressure on them at the age of 4 and think that their career is ruined if they're doing too much coloring at 4. And having given your impression on the story, I'm beginning to believe that you might be slightly unbearable as a parent as well.
No, I mean, there's no question about it. That's why I'm very hesitant to even consider having kids. Because you know how competitive I am as a person. Imagine how I would be with my kids. I would destroy their lives. So that's why having kids is a bad idea for me. But JR wants to say something.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool, put your kids in good schools, be an overbearing parent, whatever. But can we get beyond the bullshit that is Ivy League schools? Oh my God, you have to get in the Ivy League school. Fuck Ivy League schools. How about you just work hard, you're smart, you get your grades, and you get into good schools, period. Ivy League schools aren't the end-all, be-all. Go to there's better schools than Ivy League schools. You can have fun doing something besides being around a bunch of stuck-up assholes. In Ivy League schools, they're like, a school I go to. Fuck you. It doesn't really matter. Go to a school, get back out, get a good job, have your degree. It's just ridiculous. We're buying into so much bullshit on this. Yeah, it's fine. They're good schools, but if you don't get them to them, your life is not over.
JR is coming in.
Both barrels, guns loaded.
Okay, he is not taking any of this Ivy League BS. I love it. No, you're right though. You're right. Go ahead, Cenk.
No, look. Let me
Ivy League educated Cenk Uygur now wants to speak. Go ahead.
Okay. Please, 2 Ivy League degrees. JR, I suppose you would think they're not important, not having attended any of those schools. Okay. All right. Now, seriously, look, I know, having gone to those schools, that a lot of kids there are idiots. And a lot of them are, their parents were alumni or they're rich and they got every kind of break you could possibly imagine. So just because you went to Ivy League doesn't mean jack, right? And at the same time, people who didn't go to Ivy League, can they be successful? Of course. Listen, the 2 things that Ivy Leagues are good for, though, and Ivy League meaning just generally good schools, Duke, Stanford, of course, MIT, all these great schools, right, that are not in the Ivy League but are great schools. The reason to go to those are, one, honestly, the connections you make. And, it winds up that a lot of those people, right or wrong, wind up being, fairly successful in the business community, maybe even in politics, etc. And it turns out connections matter in the world. Now, maybe that sucks, but it's a reality, right? Or number 2, if you want to take just a regular job, you want to be a lawyer, you want to work in finance, then those schools help you a lot because they put you on a train to get to those jobs. If you want to be an entrepreneur, again, maybe you wind up meeting somebody that could help you, but generally it doesn't help you nearly as much because that you got to do on your own, and you got to do with hard work, et cetera, et cetera. And whereas the others are a steady career track that is made easier if you go to the top schools. Now, I'm keeping it real. Those are the advantages and the disadvantages. Now, having said all of that, the richest guy I know went to Rutgers, a state school. So if you think that that's the end-all, be-all, you're crazy. How hard you work and how industrious you are makes a million times more difference.
Yeah, I'm sure that of course the thought will be, oh, JR didn't get into the Ivy League school, so he's pissed. I love the school I went to. I'd rather, because I looked into some of those and I was like, that looks like a nightmare to go to these schools. So it wasn't even matter that, because I was thinking I was on the bullshit matter on the bandwagon too. When I was 18 years old, I was about to graduate. I was like, I'm smart, I was cocky and big headed, and then I looked into it and I was like, dude, what's the deal with this again? Like, what's the reason behind this? And then, yeah, I see the connection thing, but there's a lot of schools that do that. As everybody knows, I went to SC, and that's one of the things people hate about USC. Because once we're out, if you see someone else that went to the school, you talk to them, and you're like, oh, so, so you have a connection, and we help each other out. Like, we know we'll point out things that are happening in the world, or you may help them with something else, with an internship or something like that. And it's a network of like a family of alum. But if it happens for them, it's fine, So it happens at other schools. It's not like it's the only thing. It's the only place you can be successful, because schools help out their alum. That's what they want. They want more people to come and feel that they have this sense of success.
Can I just call out how full of shit JR is?
Yeah, please.
USC is like a top 25 school in the country. What the fuck are you talking about? It's like you're saying it as if like you went to like a school that was like
like my school
didn't make the top 200. Yeah, I mean it's top 25. You went to one of those schools, you just don't know it.
No, but it's not always posed as, the Ivy League schools, they're better than everything else. No, there's a lot of good schools. That's the thing. It's just we need to get beyond the fact we think those are the only ones. Yeah, USC was a good school, but if I say it, I'm going to get, JR, look at you bragging about your school. Well, why can I not? Hell yeah, I can brag about my school.
Yeah. Look, you know what's going to happen in the end. This hoity-toity son of a bitch over here going to name a locker room at USC the J.R. Jackson locker room, and he's going to be more unbearable than the rest of us. All right, anyway, we got to do other stories.
All right.
Hit me with what's next.
Okay, so there was a video of an Israeli model by the name of Orit Fox that was released a couple weeks ago. And it's a video of a snake that bites her breast implant, okay? The reason why I'm bringing this story up now is because the snake has died from silicone poisoning. The video is incredible. If you have a weak stomach, don't watch. But if you are interested in watching a snake bite someone's implant, go ahead.
יכולה להזיז את האוטו בבקשה? לא. מה לא? זה חניה של... מה יפה בזה? הקרונה בצורה כזאת שאין... כן. יש לי חלום עכשיו, שאתה רואה נקי לפי ראשונים. וואי, איזה תמונה. לחש את הציצי! אוי תראי! תפוס אותו, תוציא אותו! יו. זה לא קרה. יו.
Okay, look, the reason why I'm laughing is because of the guy's reaction where he says, blah, 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 titi.
Well, the reason you're laughing is, come on, keep it real. It's hilarious.
Blah, 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 titi.
I have one word to describe this. Disaster.
Oh, God.
You know what I love is people who get surprised by the most obvious things. Wow, sick did a snake bit you? Yeah, if you play with a snake, sometimes it bites you. It's an effing snake.
Yeah, I don't understand why she was trying to tongue kiss that snake. That is the last thing I would ever do. First of all, I wouldn't hold a snake. Snakes scare the crap out of me. But the fact that she was like, playing with it, taking her tongue out, I don't know. Bad idea. She had to go to the hospital.
Well,
she got a tetanus shot. Yeah, disaster.
Okay. No, what's hilarious is that she's totally fine. She recovered, so that's a good thing. Snake's dead. Silicone poisoning.
Yeah. I feel bad for the snake. Yeah, so that's all I have on that story. I don't know what else to say. All right, let's go to Vanessa Hudgens. Okay. So Vanessa Hudgens, back in 2007, was in a little bit of trouble because someone leaked naked photos of her. Okay, so I didn't know this, but back in 2009, more naked photos of her were leaked. And then in 2010, she stayed low, laid low for a while, no naked pictures. Now all of a sudden, we have more naked pictures of her. So I have to say that we don't know whether or not these pictures are real or fake yet, okay? But they basically feature Vanessa Hudgens kissing an 18-year-old girl by the name of Alexa Nicholas. She's also an actress. And yeah, Cenk, what do you think?
Well, look, here's the thing, right? Originally, this was an interesting story because Vanessa Hudgens was getting on some of the other girls for showing their punani and saying, oh, how dare they, and it's all wrong. And then, it turns out there was naked pictures of her. And then now it turns out there's an endless onslaught of naked pictures of her. Now, again, I don't know if that's her. I don't know if it's the other girl. They're claiming it's her, and then they're claiming they're kissing, which is fun for everybody. But again, I don't know if it's true. You could be the judge of that. But one thing that Hudgens says now is, look, I screwed up. And this should be a lesson to everybody. If you think pictures are private, they're not. And somebody can grab them and betray you and put them online. Now, especially if you're a celebrity, you got to be crazy, man. Of course somebody's going to take those pictures and put them online. They're going to get offered so much money, and it's going to be nearly impossible to resist. Of course they should. They should resist, and they shouldn't do that, and it's cheesy and it's horrible. But you got to keep it real, man. You got to learn. Keep your clothes on. It's going to come back to bite you. It's a terrible idea, and Hudgens is apparently learning that the hard way.
Here's what I think about these pictures. I think that they're a massive publicity stunt. And the reason why I think that is because this has happened to her not once, not twice, but for the third time. And she knew they were going to be released. And what has Vanessa Hudgens done in the past, year and a half of her career? I'm sure she's done something, but she hasn't really been in the media. People aren't really talking about her. She was very quickly fizzling out. And then now all of a sudden there's a picture of her kissing another woman and she appears to be naked. All of a sudden, we're talking about Vanessa Hudgens again. And, I'm so tired. I'm so tired of these women, pulling this BS and having everyone talk about them like, oh, look at Vanessa Hudgens. We see her titties and she's kissing another woman. Like, I don't care, dude. I don't care who you're kissing. I don't care how big your breasts are. I don't care whether you're shaved or not. Like, I'm so tired of paying attention to these women because of the fact that they release or leak these naked pictures and pretend like they knew nothing about it and they act like they're the victim. Please.
Anna, that is where you and I disagree. I find it to be endlessly fascinating. But look, one of the reasons we brought up this story is I think you're exactly right. Vanessa Hudgens also is on the cover of one of the magazines now. I believe she has a movie coming out. It's way too much of a coincidence that you would have her on the magazine cover as she needs publicity, and at the same time, will you look at that, questionable pictures of her making out with chicks and possibly naked come out. So it's got to be coordinated. You would think. It appears, right? Mm-hmm. And it goes to show you how, jaded Hollywood is. And I know that it's all one big lie and it's all one big marketing machine, but it's amazing to see it as she gives us speeches about how you shouldn't do the naked pictures if, in fact, her publicity people are, in fact, leaking them themselves. And Hollywood is an amazing place. It kind of reminds me of D.C.
All right, JR, did you want to say something? All right. Well, that does it for today's show, guys. If you're a member, stick around. We will have a post-game show today. And make sure you watch Cenk tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on MSNBC. We'll see you tomorrow.